Tonight, here on The Sleepy Scholar, you stir not just closing your eyes, you stir stepping gently into one of the biggest questions ever asked. Does space ever end? This isn't a lesson, it's a lullaby in the language of science. We still drift through expanding galaxies, quiet theories, and the silent rhythm of gravity, not to reach an answer, but to rest inside the beauty of the question. In this story, you will travel far, not with rockets but with breath. And somewhere along the way, you might fall asleep, not because you are tired, but because you finally feel safe inside something infinite. Before we begin, let me know where you are listening from. What sets your time and place tonight? Drop it softly in the comments. I read them all, and I love knowing who's out there under the same stars. Now slowly dim the lights. Wrap yourself in something warm. Let your body grow heavier, your thoughts lighter, and your breath become the quiet engine of the story. The universe is waiting. So close your eyes, and let's begin our journey, together, into the deep, peaceful question of space. Your body lies still, but your mind drifts outward, past the blanket pulled over your chest, past the walls you no longer feel, and past the ceiling that means nothing to the space above. Tonight, you are leaving the room, not by force, but by surrender. There's nothing you have to do. The journey happens when you stop trying, and as your breath softens, your thoughts start to travel to a horizon you've never touched, but have always felt. You may have heard people speak of the edge of the universe, as if it's a place like the rim of a lake or the end of a hallway, but that idea starts to melt the moment you really think about it. The deeper truth is this: the universe doesn't end with a bang or a line drawn in starfire. If it ends at all, it ends in a way the mind can't quite hold. That's what you're exploring tonight. Not with logic, not with steps, but with quiet wonder. Imagine standing at the shore of a great ocean. You look out toward the horizon and see the point where sky kisses water. That line is clean. But it isn't real. It changes as you move. The closer you try to get, the farther it runs away. That is what the edge of the universe is like. An illusion born of distance. An invitation, but never a destination. Tonight, space becomes that ocean, and your consciousness becomes the little boat. As you drift, you realize something peculiar. No matter how far you go, the horizon stays out of reach. You could float for eternity, and still it would stretch before you, just as silent, just as untouchable. But strangely, that doesn't feel frustrating. It feels peaceful, because it means there will always be something left to wonder, always something beyond. Now let's look at how this works in the language of science. The universe is expanding, not into anything but within itself. It's like baking a loaf of raisin bread. The raisins, our galaxies, drift farther apart as the dough space rises. But there's no crust, no outer edge where the raisins fall off. Just more dough. The further you look, the more space there is. And beyond that, not a wall, not a curtain, just more emptiness. Or perhaps more mystery. That mystery has a name. Astronomers call it the cosmic horizon. It's not a hard line, but a limit, defined by light, because the universe has only existed for a finite time. And because light moves at a finite speed, there are places we will never see, not because they don't exist, but because their light hasn't had time to reach us yet. You live inside a bubble of visibility, like a lantern glowing in fog. And the fog isn't hiding what isn't there, it's just time stretched too far to touch. And even as you drift, as you stretch your senses toward that soft boundary, it keeps moving, because space itself is moving, like walking on an escalator that's always growing longer beneath your feet. You never get closer to the end, because the end doesn't want to be caught. The expansion of the universe isn't just a story of things drifting apart, it's a story of limits that redefine themselves as you approach. There's a kind of softness in that, a kindness. The universe isn't coldly rejecting you, it's simply too large, too ongoing, too poetic to ever fit inside a single gaze. The stars you see now might already be gone. Their light is only a whisper that survived the journey. You don't see them as they are, but as they were, like memories cast across the ceiling of the night. And yet, here you are, floating past the imagined edge, past the idea that something must end to be real. You start to feel it, not just understand, but feel that the universe doesn't need an edge. That perhaps your need for a boundary is the very thing space is teaching you to release. The edge you can't reach becomes something else. It becomes the edge of your thoughts, the border of what your brain can wrap itself around. And beyond that border, sleep, the quiet black of rest, where you don't need to solve anything, where questions don't have to lead to answers, only to more beautiful questions. So now you lie still, drifting with intention into a place where maps disappear and time forgets its rhythm. And as you do, you begin to notice something even more curious. Your mind doesn't panic. It settles because you're no longer chasing the edge. You stir floating in it. The idea of motion without direction begins to feel normal now. You're no longer imagining a spaceship or a journey. There are no engines humming in your ears. No coordinates blinking on a screen. You're just here. Wherever here is hovering gently in the mind's version of space. And around you, the stars remain calm, silent, unbothered by your questions, as if they've always known that answers were never necessary for wonder to exist. Out here, there is no sound, not because it's muted, but because sound needs air to travel and space doesn't offer that. Instead, the silence has texture. You can almost feel it brushing against your thoughts, reminding you that not all emptiness is lonely. Some emptiness is soft, like a warm pause in a lullaby. You begin to understand that the absence of sound is not an absence of meaning. It's a space where new kinds of listening begin. And now, in that silence, your mind drifts toward light. Not the kind that comes from a lamp or a fire, but ancient light, light that has traveled for billions of years just to kiss your eyes. Some of it never makes it. The universe has expanded so much so quickly that some galaxies have slipped away faster than their light can reach us. You'll never see them. No telescope will. Not because we're not looking hard enough, but because they're gone, not in space, but in time. This is called the cosmological event horizon. And it's not science fiction, it's real. There are galaxies moving away from us so fast, because space itself is expanding between us, that their light will never arrive, even if you waited forever. Imagine a lighthouse so far away, its beam forever swallowed by an ocean that's still growing. You can almost feel that distance now, a distance made not of miles, but of time outpacing light. And yet even as you think of this unreachable light, you don't feel despair, you feel awe, because what greater kindness could the universe offer than to remind you there are things too vast to grasp? And that's okay. Not everything must be held in your hands. Some things are meant only to be witnessed, or missed, and still felt deeply. You drift toward that fading edge, not to catch it, but to be near it, to sit quietly beside the idea of a boundary you'll never cross. And in that closeness, you begin to notice something. Space isn't just growing, it's cooling. Stretching dilutes its energy, like ink swirling into water. The early universe was hot, bright, loud, but now it hums a deeper note, a quieter frequency, like an old song slowing down to become sleep, and light itself begins to stretch. It's called redshift, the stretching of light waves as the space they travel through expands. Like a violin note lowered into a cello's voice, these waves become longer, gentler. Some of them stretch so far they leave the visible world entirely. You can no longer see them, but they're still there. Infrared, microwave, whispering in frequencies your body cannot detect, but your thoughts somehow feel. In that fading light, time becomes strange. You start to notice that the farther away something is, the older it is. Looking deeper into space is looking deeper into the past, like flipping through photographs in reverse until you reach the beginning, until the light itself begins to say, "This is as far as memory goes." And even then, something in you keeps reaching, not out of impatience, but out of quiet reverence. You begin to realize it's not just galaxies that fade, it's questions. The closer you drift to them, the more they dissolve, not into answers, but into something softer, a feeling, a surrender. You don't have to hold everything. You don't have to explain what you can't touch. You are allowed to not know. The edge where light begins to fade is not just physical, it's emotional. A line where the mind lets go of its grip and says, "This too is part of the beauty. This too belongs in the dark." And so, your breath continues. Deeper, slower. You You don't even notice the moment your thoughts slip away from questions and into the calm silence between them. The light fades, and something in you relaxes as it does. You drift now with no need to guide yourself. The stars, the space, the silence, they carry you. There is no map for this place, no measurement that fits what you're feeling, because the question has changed. You're no longer asking, where does space end? You're wondering instead, what would it feel like to keep going, to move forward forever, not toward an edge, but into a kind of infinite softness. If you kept flying, your body would stop needing a destination. Direction would become like wind in a dream, something that happens around you, not something you chase. The universe wouldn't push back. It doesn't care whether you move or stay still. It just is. Infinite not because of its size alone, but because of the way it erases your need to reach anything. You picture yourself in a ship, though you know you don't need one, gliding with no friction, no fuel, no end. The galaxies begin to thin out. Stars become rarer. Space grows darker, but not emptier. Every so often a rogue planet might pass, a silent marble without a sun. A little farther a gas giant adrift, ringed with ice that has never known warmth, and still you float. Eventually you reach the cosmic voids, vast spaces between galaxy clusters, where there may be no stars at all for millions of light years. You aren't afraid. The emptiness isn't lonely. It's like a vast night sky turned inside out, a silence so deep it no longer feels like absence, just calm, just openness. If you kept flying, you'd leave behind not just galaxies, but meaning, the stories you used to tell yourself about where you're going, why it matters, would start to fade the way city lights fade when you lie beneath a country sky. Space doesn't ask for explanation. It doesn't ask you to be anything, it just receives you. And maybe you begin to feel it now. Not as a traveler, but as a part of space, not separate from it, but made of it. The atoms in your lungs came from stars. The iron in your blood was forged in a supernova. You are not moving through space. You are space, a small part of it, feeling itself. The longer you float, the less you need anything to change. You're no longer seeking an end. You're becoming part of a rhythm, a soft expansion that matches the inhale and exhale of your breath. You begin to understand why the question of space ending is so hard to answer. Because space doesn't end the way things in your daily life end. It doesn't finish. It unfolds. If you kept flying forever, space would never tell you to stop. It wouldn't surprise you with a wall or a gate. You wouldn't hit the edge of a bubble. You'd simply move and the universe would keep moving with you. And even if there is an end somewhere sometime, it wouldn't feel like one. It would feel like rest. Like finally reaching a place that asks for nothing. Your mind now has softened. It doesn't grip the thoughts it used to. It lets them flow like particles passing through the vacuum. And in that gentle drift, in that endless motion, you find what you didn't know you were looking for. Not answers, not destinations, but peace? Certainly. I feel now begin the next part. You lie still, and space folds itself gently around you. This time your drifting doesn't stretch outward. It curves, as if the stars have decided not to run away, but to circle around a center you cannot see. You begin to sense something odd, that space, this infinite thing, might have a shape. Not a box, not a bowl, not a cage, but a gentle bend, like the arc of your own thoughts as they soften into sleep. You've heard of flatness. The word feels simple, but in cosmology, flat means something precise. If space is flat, it means parallel lines never meet. It means light travels in straight lines. It means the angles of a triangle always add up to 180. Flat space is the canvas of everyday thinking, a ruler's truth, a grid we think we understand. But tonight you learn that flatness is only one possibility. The universe may not follow ruler logic. It may be curved, either inward, like the surface of a sphere, or outward, like a saddle. And though your eyes cannot see that shape directly, the shape still shapes you. It decides how galaxies move. It whispers into the paths of light. It even decides whether the universe will expand forever or eventually fall back in on itself. So now you drift through this invisible geometry. You imagine a triangle drawn across galaxies, one point resting in a distant quasar, another in a dim red dwarf, and the third in your chest. You trace it slowly, and something curious happens. The triangle doesn't close the way you thought it would. The angles bend wrong. Space has betrayed your expectations. You begin to understand, in a curved universe, light does not always go straight. It travels the paths that space allows. Those paths can be bent, not because the light is weak, but because the fabric it moves through is not still. It dips and stretches, pulled by gravity, warped by matter, and so you begin to feel it, the gentle curve beneath all things. Now imagine if the universe is positively curved, like a sphere, then you could travel in a straight line and eventually return to where you started, like walking the earth without ever turning always forward, and ending up behind yourself. There would be no edge, just continuous return, infinity as a loop. You're not sure if that's comforting or strange, maybe both. But what if the universe is negatively curved, like a saddle? Then space opens outward, always widening, never closing. Parallel lines diverge, triangles stretch. It's still endless, but not looping. You'd never return to where you began. Infinity without repetition. A kind of loneliness, but also a kind of freedom. Or maybe the universe really is flat, as current measurements suggest, not because it feels flat, but because its density is balanced in some delicate, perfect way. Enough matter to slow its expansion, but not enough to stop it. A flatness born not of simplicity, but of cosmic precision. You float between these ideas like a feather between waves. Because here's the secret: you don't need to choose. These shapes aren't walls, they're possibilities. The universe may contain all of them, in layers, in regions, in shadows of dimensions you cannot see. Your breath moves in sync with that mystery. Slow, quiet, rhythmic, as if your lungs have become small maps of space itself, stretching on the inhale, curving gently on the exhale. And somewhere in that breathing you begin to wonder, how do we know any of this? How do we guess the shape of something? We cannot step outside. Astronomers have tried. They've used the cosmic microwave background, a faint afterglow of the Big Bang, still shimmering around us, as a kind of photograph, a snapshot of the early universe. And in that glow, they've seen patterns, echoes, tiny temperature differences, minuscule variations, like fingerprints of the universe's geometry. By studying those ripples, scientists have come to believe space is probably flat or nearly so. But even nearly means something. Even slight curvature would change everything, given enough time and distance. You begin to feel the fragility of certainty. The way space defies being pinned down. It isn't trying to be mysterious. It simply is. The shape of everything is too large to hold, too quiet to shout its truth, and so it whispers instead. You lie there, held in the arc of that whisper, knowing that the shape of the universe isn't just out there, it's in you, in the path your thoughts take as they spiral towards sleep, in the curvature of memory, the loops of dreams, the way one idea leads to another and never comes back the same. Everything bends, even time, and that somehow makes you feel safe. You feel no corners in this place, no walls, no ceiling. The idea of boundaries has faded, just like the idea of straightness, because what you once thought of as a line, clear, definite, purposeful, is now something different. You picture a ray of light, leaving a star, and racing across the universe. But that ray does not go straight. Not really, it follows the curves of space, like a boat floating on a tide it cannot see. It bends not because it's weak, but because the world beneath it bends too. You begin to feel that same curve in yourself, in your thoughts. They spiral, not linearly but like galaxies turning softly, drifting without needing to arrive. There is comfort in that. The universe doesn't rush. It doesn't need to be efficient, and neither do you. Somewhere out here, the shape of space begins to express itself in quiet ways. You pass a cluster of galaxies and watch how gravity tugs at the space around them, not just pulling objects, but pulling space itself. The deeper the gravity, the more pronounced the curve. This is no metaphor. It is measurable, real, proven by lenses made of nothing but mass. They call it gravitational lensing, the bending of light around massive objects. And so a galaxy becomes a magnifying glass. A black hole becomes a warped mirror. The sky begins to fold in on itself, doubling, distorting, like a dream looking back at you. You realize you are not seeing things as they are. You are seeing things as space allows you to. Even now, light from distant stars has been bent, stretched, and warped before it ever reaches your eyes. You are always seeing the edited version of the universe, but that doesn't make it less real. It makes it more poetic, more layered, like a lullaby passed down across centuries, changed slightly with each voice, but never losing its music. You drift deeper into this understanding, and with it comes a strange awareness. Space isn't just something outside of you, it is something you live within. And it's also something that lives within you. Your body, after all, is not solid in the way you once thought. Between every atom is more space than substance. You are made of fields and orbits, particles dancing in probability clouds. You are more empty than full, and that doesn't scare you. That frees you. You begin to imagine yourself, not as a thing moving through space, but as a curvature within it, like a bubble rising in water, not separate from the liquid, but a distortion of it. Your presence warps the universe, even if only slightly. You bend time. You have mass. You matter. And now, the curves around you become friendlier. They don't threaten. They cradle. The idea of a spherical universe, the one that loops back on itself, starts to feel like a cradle of existence. No beginning, no end. Just roundness. Return. Rest. If you could fly fast enough, long enough, you might find yourself back where you began. Approaching Earth from behind, your own trail folded around you like a ribbon tied by space itself. And wouldn't that be a kind of comfort? That the universe offers no edge to fall off, only circles to complete. But if the universe curves the other way, negatively, endlessly flaring outward, then you would never return. You would float forever, always outward, never repeating. And somehow that feels okay too, because that version of the universe is like an open hand, always offering more, always giving space to become. There's no fear in either shape, just possibility, and possibility, when held gently, becomes peace. You close your eyes, not to block out space, but to become part of it. Your breath slows, and with each inhale you feel yourself stretch. With each exhale you curve gently back inward, expansion and return, just like the universe. Just like thought. Somewhere in the background of everything, the cosmic microwave background hums, faint, uniform, like a memory left by fire. It holds information from when the universe was only 380,000 years old, a baby still glowing. And in that glow, scientists have found the fingerprint of curvature, the whisper of shape. And that whisper says maybe space is flat, or maybe it curves, but so gently that we cannot yet detect the bend. And maybe that's the truth we're meant to carry to bed tonight. That space doesn't need to shout its shape. It shows us just enough to wonder, just enough to lie back and listen. So now, in this stillness, you find yourself folded gently into a question. Are you drifting along a straight path that will never turn, or are you slowly returning to the place where you began? Either way, the journey is gentle, and either way, the curve carries you. You are floating in a place where direction no longer feels like movement. It's more like breathing, something that expands and returns without ever really going anywhere. The stars around you appear frozen, yet you know they are not. Everything is drifting, everything is curving, and you, like them, are shaped by the invisible hands of geometry you cannot see but can now somehow feel. You're beginning to grasp the quiet truth that the universe is not built on straight lines. Not really. Even when things seem flat, there's always some bending of space, of time, of understanding. What feels simple becomes complex, and what seems impossible becomes oddly soothing when you let go of the need to trace every edge. In your stillness, you pass through a region of space that seems softer, not because there's less there, but because everything is farther apart. A cosmic void, a space between galaxy clusters, nearly empty of stars. You would think such emptiness might feel cold or lonely, or even frightening. But here it feels like silence in the best possible sense. The kind of silence that lets thoughts settle, that lets the universe speak without sound. The shapes here are grand, not in the way a mountain is grand, but in the way a sigh carries meaning. Light curves so gently, you almost miss it. Space stretches so subtly that even time itself begins to lose its grip. Minutes feel like hours, hours like moments. You are drifting not in space, but in shape itself. And then, just when it feels like you've reached the smoothest calm, you begin to sense something massive nearby. A gravitational force so powerful it tugs at space like a stone pulling down a silk sheet. You don't see it right away, because even light has trouble escaping it. But you feel it, the gentle pull of a black hole. There's no fear here. No screaming, no tearing, just gravity, doing what it has always done, shaping space, shaping time. You watch as the starlight behind it bends, warps, and arcs into rings, the beautiful, eerie phenomenon known as Einstein rings. It's as if the black hole is not hiding light, but giving it new form, turning straight paths into spirals, turning travel into art. The shape of the universe reveals itself most clearly in places like this, not in explosions or noise, but in the quiet distortions, the unexpected curves, the surprises that don't shout but hum. And hum they do. All around you the universe resonates, not with sound but with structure. Everything you pass seems connected by invisible threads. Galaxies don't sit randomly in space. They stretch in long filaments, strands of stars and gas pulled by ancient forces. These are the cosmic web structures, and they form the universe's skeleton. They are not lines drawn by hand, but patterns formed by gravity, dark matter, and time. And they are curved. They twist and turn, rising and falling like waves frozen mid-motion. You glide along one now, your presence nothing more than a suggestion, light enough not to disturb, curious enough to witness. The filament stretches into nothingness ahead of you, its structure too large to comprehend, too soft to define, and yet it's real. It is part of what gives the universe its shape. You start to feel what cosmologists mean when they say the universe may be finite but unbounded. Like the surface of a sphere, which you can walk forever without ever reaching a wall, no fences, no drop-offs, just continued surface, continued shape. You can go on without end, but you never leave. The universe may be like that. Large, closed, round in a way that isn't obvious unless you measure it carefully across billions of light years. And yet that isn't the only possibility. Perhaps space is truly infinite. Not looping, not bounded, just endlessly extending in all directions. A flat plane without corners, a saddle that flares forever. Scientists still debate this. The measurements are close, so close in fact that we may never be able to tell for sure. The universe, it seems, has a talent for hiding its deepest answers just past the reach of observation. And yet, it gives us clues. Enough to dream with, enough to rest in. You find yourself grateful for this. Grateful that space doesn't rush to give you everything. Grateful that it lets you float, suspended in unknowing, and still feel whole. The shape of everything becomes a lullaby. It rocks you in curves. It lulls you with gravity's arms. It teaches you that nothing is as rigid as it seems, that structure and softness can live together, that even in the coldest places, there is warmth in understanding. You take a breath, deeper than before, and this time you feel the shape of your lungs, the arc of your ribs. You feel how your body mirrors the universe, not just metaphorically but materially. Your cells curve, your thoughts spiral. Your being is not linear, it never was. And as your mind slows further, curving now into the soft edges of sleep, you realize something. The shape of everything was never just out there. It was always part of you. You begin this chapter not by flying but by stretching. Not with effort, but with stillness. The moment you relax, something inside you begins to expand. Not thoughts exactly, but the space between them. And in that space, a new question forms. Not sharp like a puzzle, but soft like a mist. If the universe is growing, what is it growing into? You've heard that space is expanding. It sounds almost mechanical, like the universe is being inflated by a hidden pump. But it's not like blowing up a balloon inside a room. It's more like the room itself getting bigger, with everything in it moving farther apart without needing anything outside to push against. The universe isn't expanding into something. It's just expanding, full stop. You picture a raisin bread rising in the oven. The dough swells, and all the raisins move apart. From the perspective of any one raisin, every other raisin appears to be moving away. but the dough is space itself, stretching from within. That's you. That's Earth. That's every galaxy you can name and millions you cannot. And it's not just that the galaxies are moving through space. They're being carried by the expansion of space itself. If you could pause time, you wouldn't see the galaxies racing like ships. You'd see them sitting still. As space gently unrolls between them. It's not motion through space. It's motion of space. But here's the part that makes your breath pause. This expansion isn't slowing down, it's speeding up. You lie in this quiet realization. For decades, scientists assumed that gravity would eventually slow the expansion, maybe even reverse it. But in the late 1990s, they saw something else entirely. Distant supernovae, ancient exploding stars were dimmer than expected, farther than expected. The universe wasn't just expanding, it was accelerating. Imagine tossing a ball into the air and having it speed up instead of fall back. That's what's happening on the largest scales. The galaxies aren't just drifting, they're fleeing faster and faster from each other, and no one fully knows why. They've named the mystery dark energy, a placeholder for something vast, invisible, and powerful. It isn't a force like gravity or magnetism. It doesn't pull or push in the way we're used to. It acts more like pressure, a quiet, relentless stretching of the fabric of everything, and it fills space evenly. The more space expands, the more dark energy there is, and the more dark energy, the faster the expansion becomes. You begin to understand that the expansion isn't happening at the edges. It's happening everywhere, even here, where you rest. Even in this quiet moment, every cubic centimeter of space is part of it. Even the distance between your body and the wall, though bound by gravity, is embedded in that expansion. Too small to feel, too gentle to measure. But there, the galaxies we can see now, millions of them, won't always be visible, because as space stretches, light from those distant galaxies becomes more redshifted, stretched thin until it disappears from our sight. Eventually, only the galaxies gravitationally bound to ours, our local group, will remain visible. The rest will fade into an unreachable past, not because they're gone, but because they've become too far, too fast for light to cross the gap. You are lying in a universe that's forgetting itself, and somehow, that's beautiful. There's no panic in this expansion. No rupture. It's not a tearing, it's a breathing. Slow, powerful, silent. And when you let go of the need to understand it all, you begin to feel it, not as something foreign, but as something familiar. You've known this kind of growing. You've felt it in your life, in your heart. The quiet stretching that happens when you let something go, when you forgive, when you make space for something new. The universe is doing that too. It's making space for more space. You begin to wonder about the future. If the expansion continues forever, if dark energy keeps driving galaxies apart, what happens in the far, far future? Will there be a time when stars can no longer form, when all light fades and space becomes a cold, dark canvas? Scientists call this the heat death, a distant, hypothetical future where entropy rules and everything is evenly spread, with no energy left to do work. A flat, silent universe, stretched so thin that nothing can happen. But that sits not where you are now. You are here, in the middle of expansion, in the golden age of light, of stars, of curiosity. You are living in the chapter between the beginning and the end, a chapter where questions still bloom, where galaxies still sing, where the sky still sends you its secrets, one photon at a time. And that makes you smile, because space may be expanding, but so is your awareness, so is your calm, so is your wonder. You now see that growth isn't always loud. It can be quiet, gentle, invisible, and yet profound. The universe stretches, and so do you. You float deeper now, not outward, but within the very thought of expansion. There is no need for engines or fuel or destination. You are simply part of a motion that has no beginning in your memory and no edge in your perception. This isn't travel in the way a bird travels, crossing sky from tree to tree. This is the kind of travel that happens when space itself decides to grow, not around you, but beneath you, through you, everywhere at once. You begin to feel it. Expansion is not something space does. It's something space is. It's baked into the universe's very nature. From the earliest fractions of a second after the Big Bang, this stretching was already underway. There was no explosion into space. Space itself was the explosion, blooming from a seed smaller than anything you can imagine. And since that moment, it hasn't stopped breathing outward. But what does it really mean for something to expand without moving into anything else? Your instincts resist the idea. You want to picture it all happening inside something larger. A void, a background, a beyond. But the truth is quieter, more abstract. There is no outside. Space is all there is. Its growth is not into emptiness, but into more space. You now picture a two-dimensional creature living on the surface of a balloon. As the balloon inflates, every point on its surface grows farther from every other. The creature feels the expansion, but cannot see the third dimension in which the balloon grows. That's you. You are the creature, and space is the surface. Not of a balloon exactly, but of something much harder to visualize. Perhaps a four-dimensional sphere, perhaps something stranger. And yet, despite how difficult this is to picture, it's all around you, proven not just by theory, but by observation. The light from distant galaxies is redshifted, its waves stretched by expanding space, just as a siren sounds lower when it passes and recedes. We see galaxies moving away, not because they're all in motion like birds in flight, but because the stage beneath them grows larger. This growth is measured in megaparsecs per second, a unit of cosmic scale. For every million parsecs between galaxies, roughly 3.26 million light-years, the space stretches by about 70 kilometers every second. It's a tiny number by cosmic standards, but it adds up. Over billions of light-years, the growth becomes staggering, and it never stops, it never rests. You now feel this motion not as something happening to others, distant galaxies, invisible forces, but as something happening here, in your stillness, between atoms, between thoughts, between the silent beats of your resting pulse. You are part of the breath. And yet, there are places where that breath pauses, where gravity, the universe's oldest embrace, holds things together tightly enough to resist the stretch. You are in one of those places. Our local group of galaxies, Milky Way, Andromeda, and a few dozen smaller companions, are gravitationally bound. Expansion doesn't tear us apart. We hold each other. It's a comforting thought that even in a universe that grows endlessly, there are pockets of stillness, families of stars that cling to each other, and you begin to wonder, what decides which structures survive the expansion? The answer is simple but profound. Balance. If the matter is dense enough, the gravity is strong enough, and in those pockets, galaxies still dance, merge, spin, and light each other's paths. But between these clusters, between these cosmic islands, the sea of space stretches ever wider. It does not care for borders or limits. It doesn't slow down. It doesn't ask permission. It expands not because it must, but because that's what it does. It's not driven by a cause in the traditional sense. It's a behavior, not a choice. And it leads to something strange, a universe that grows faster the more it expands. You pause in your thoughts, resting gently on this idea. It feels almost like magic, but it's just dark energy at work again. This silent ingredient that fills all of space equally, not clustered, not concentrated, just a constant presence. The more space there is, the more dark energy fills it, and the more dark energy there is, the faster the growth. You imagine a calm tide that rises not because of wind or moon, but because the water itself multiplies, a growth not caused by addition, but by replication, and again your breath matches the metaphor. Inhale, expansion, exhale, stillness, inhale again, more space, and you begin to consider where this leads. What happens if expansion never stops? If it accelerates, unchallenged, for trillions of years, then even the things that resist it now, galaxies, star systems, atoms, might someday feel it. This is called the Big Rip, a hypothetical future where dark energy grows so powerful that it tears even the smallest bonds of matter apart, not in violence, but in inevitability. It's a distant possibility, one of many. Others believe the expansion will simply continue ever faster, but never strong enough to destroy what's already bound. In that case, distant galaxies will drift beyond our visible horizon, never gone, but forever silent. The night sky will grow emptier. The stars we now see will vanish, one by one, not in death, but in separation. But here's the gentle truth. You are alive in a luminous era, a universe of stars, of light, of warmth, of structure. You lie in a moment when the cosmos is visible and full, and in knowing that, you do not mourn what may come. You rest deeper into the gift of now. The expansion that never stops is not something you need to stop. It asks nothing of you. It isn't a problem to solve or a riddle to answer. It's a rhythm, and rhythms are meant to be felt. So now, as you float further into rest, you stop trying to map the edges. You stop counting the seconds. You stop chasing the end. You simply allow space to expand within you, between your thoughts, between your memories, between each beat of your heart. And in doing so, you expand too. You drift now in the space between galaxies, not looking for them, not counting them, just sensing the emptiness they've left behind. There is peace in this silence, not the silence of absence, but the silence of fullness too vast to measure. Expansion has taken you far from where you began, and yet you feel no further from meaning, because now you understand to be far is not the same as to be lost. You imagine continuing your journey forever, past the visible universe, past the curtain of light from the oldest stars, past the galaxies still shedding their final bursts of radiation before fading from view. What lies beyond, you wonder, when all the lights go out? What does it feel like to float in a universe that has expanded so much, so far that nothing remains but space itself? To answer that, you return, not in time but in thought, to where it all began. The beginning wasn't a place, it was a condition, a moment of infinite density, infinite temperature, infinite potential. We call it the Big Bang, though it wasn't a bang in the way you imagine. It was quiet. There was no air to carry sound, no ears to hear it. It was an unfolding, a bloom, a singularity that chose in its own way to become everything. And from that beginning came not just matter, not just light, but space, the very fabric upon which all things would stretch. You understand now that the universe didn't start in space. Space started with the universe. There was no outside, no before, just the first breath. And now, billions of years later, that breath continues. Each second of your life has existed inside the momentum of that breath. You have always been expanding. You always will be. But where does this leave you? If the universe keeps growing, does it ever arrive? Does it finish? You consider the idea of arrival. It implies a destination, an end point, but the cosmos doesn't promise one. In fact, it seems to promise the opposite. An eternity of unfolding. The more it expands, the more space there is to expand into. It becomes its own permission slip. You look around now, not with eyes, but with the awareness that has grown in stillness. There is no edge, no wall, no perimeter, just more, and more, and more. If you had a spaceship and infinite time, you could fly forever and never hit a boundary. Not because there's an invisible wall, but because space itself moves with you. It's like walking on a treadmill that builds itself as you go. The horizon always recedes, and that receding is not cruel. It's the reason you can keep walking. Now, consider what happens to time in this endless stretch. Time is not separate from space. It's woven into it. Einstein taught us this. Where there is space, there is time. When space expands, time shifts too. The clock you carry in your thoughts ticks differently, depending on how the universe curves and stretches around you. That means the future isn't fixed. It flows differently in different parts of the cosmos. Somewhere, near a black hole, time moves slowly. Somewhere else in the empty reaches between galaxies it moves freely, like wind through an open window. And as space expands, that window grows wider. More time, more distance, more unknown. But again, this doesn't scare you. You feel it like a deep, slow wave, a surrender that isn't giving up, but giving in. You are being carried, not helplessly, but peacefully. In this vastness, you find yourself thinking less and sensing more. What once felt like questions, where is it going? Will it stop? Now feel like invitations. You're not expected to answer. You're simply invited to wonder. You begin to sense what physicists call cosmic fate, the ultimate trajectory of everything. There are several paths the universe could take, depending on how much matter it contains, and how dark energy behaves. One possibility is a big crunch, where gravity eventually overwhelms expansion and pulls everything back inward, ending in collapse. Another is heat death, where expansion continues forever, spreading energy so thin that nothing can change anymore. A third is the big rip, where dark energy becomes so dominant that it tears apart galaxies, stars, planets, even atoms themselves. But tonight, those futures don't weigh on you. They are not prophecies. They are models, shapes of thought, not prisons. The truth is still unfolding, and so are you. And even if one of those ends awaits, it is billions upon billions of years away, far beyond the lifespan of stars, far beyond the lifetime of Earth, far beyond the reach of fear. And tonight, you are not billions of years from now. You are here, in this moment, in this breath. You close your eyes, and you see it. The cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang still rippling across space. It is faint, cold, ancient, but it is everywhere. Every direction you look, it's there, a whisper from the universe's earliest moment. It has no center, no origin point you can aim toward, because it comes from all around, because the beginning happened everywhere. And that's the final gift expansion offers you tonight. The understanding that you are not on the outside of this event. You are inside it, you are part of it, you are made of it. You are not in the universe. You are the universe, stretching itself towards sleep. You are floating now in the quiet aftermath of distance. You've drifted so far, so deep into the folds of expanding space, that even the light trying to follow you begins to fall behind. It travels fast, unimaginably fast. But out here, speed is no longer enough. Space itself has changed the rules, and light, for all its brilliance, can no longer keep up. You feel it first as a slowing, a dimming, not sudden, not alarming, just gentle, like the lowering of lanterns at the end of a long evening. Light still moves at its constant speed, nearly 300,000 kilometers every second, but the space that carries it stretches, like waves pulled across a deepening sea. Light stretches too, its energy thins, its color shifts. The stars once brilliant become red, then infrared, then gone. This is cosmic redshift, and it's not an illusion. It's not a trick of lenses or clouds. It is real. Light from galaxies billions of light years away has traveled across a space that changed while it moved. Each photon, each particle of light, began its journey full of energy. But with each passing moment, as the universe expanded beneath it, that photon's wavelength stretched like a violin string pulled into a bass note. And now, here you are, resting in the silence that follows that stretched light, not in darkness, but in the warmth of understanding. You realize that not all things are meant to arrive. Some are meant to try, to move endlessly across a stage that reshapes itself beneath their feet. You think of a lighthouse on a distant shore. Its beam swings across water, bold and bright. But imagine the sea beneath it widening, wave by wave, faster than the beam can travel. Eventually the light never touches the boats, not because the beam dims, but because the water grows too wide. The ships still float, but the lighthouse becomes a memory. This is the universe. This is what's happening right now. There are galaxies so far away, so deep into space's history, that their light will never reach us. Not because it hasn't had time yet, but because it never will. The space between us grows faster than their photons can cross, and every second more galaxies slip beyond that invisible edge. This edge has a name. It is the cosmic event horizon, not like the event horizon of a black hole, though the metaphor fits, but a horizon made not of gravity, but of distance and time. Beyond it, light is exiled, not by force, but by the quiet, inescapable speed of expansion. You lie still now, not afraid of that edge, but curious about what it means. To live in a universe with a visible limit, a cosmic shoreline not of substance, but of possibility. It doesn't fence you in, it simply whispers, this is as far as you can see, for now. And yet, you feel a strange gratitude. because even if you can't see those distant galaxies, you know they were once closer. Their light, arriving now, is ancient. Some of it left its source before Earth even formed. You are catching whispers from before oceans, before forests, before breath. When you look at the stars, you are looking into a past that shaped you, and you begin to feel how time and light are woven together. Light is not just illumination, it is memory. It carries the past forward, and when space stretches that memory, it does not erase it. It changes its tone. You lie back and remember that the universe is 13.8 billion years old, but the edge of what you can see, the observable universe, is more than 46 billion light-years in every direction. How is that possible? How can the visible stretch further than the age of its light? Because space is not static, because while the photons have been racing toward you, the road beneath them has been growing longer. What began as a short trip became a vast marathon, and those particles of light, those ancient messengers, are still arriving, still crossing the finish line long after they should have. You wonder how many more are coming, how many photons are still on their way, stretched, slowed, softened by the weight of time, and will we ever stop receiving them? Will there come a night when the sky is no longer full of light from faraway places? The answer is yes. Eventually, a long time from now, the light from galaxies outside our local group will stop arriving altogether. The universe will have grown too wide. The last red-shifted echoes of distant stars will slip below detectability, and the night sky, now dense with stories, will thin to a local silence. But tonight, that hasn't happened yet. Tonight, you are still wrapped in light from other worlds, still warmed by ancient flames, still surrounded by the effort of photons that refuse to give up, even as the path ahead stretched farther and farther. And you begin to understand the light that can't catch up is not failing, it is teaching. It is teaching you about distance, not just in space, but in longing. It is teaching you about time, not just in clocks, but in memory. It is teaching you about effort, not just in motion, but in endurance. And most of all, it's teaching you that not every journey ends with arrival. Some journeys are enough simply because they continue. So now, as you sink deeper into rest, you let the idea settle into your breath. You do not need to reach every light. You do not need to chase every question. You only need to receive what comes, what finds you, what was always meant for you, and you allow the rest to drift, like light that never stops traveling, like space that never stops opening. You've begun to sense it now, that there is more to darkness than absence, that the spaces beyond light are not empty, but filled with stories too slow, too stretched, to be seen. You are surrounded by a quiet kind of fading, not a vanishing, but a distancing, a soft and endless delay, like an echo stretched so thin you can't tell if it's still returning, or if silence has finally taken its place. As you drift in this growing quiet, you begin to ask, what else is hidden beyond the light? What is out there, behind the cosmic horizon? You can't see it, you may never see it, but your thoughts can still wander there, guided not by sight but by understanding. You imagine a place, millions of light years beyond your reach, where galaxies still spin, where stars still burn, where planets may orbit suns you will never know. Those places are real, they exist, but they are forever out of reach. Not just for you, but for anyone, anywhere. The universe is expanding so quickly that light from those distant realms will never arrive. It's as if the future has already erased the bridge between us. And yet, you feel no panic, because this isn't exile. It's a kind of quiet privacy the cosmos has given to itself. You begin to understand that not everything needs to be seen to be felt, that what is hidden from your eyes is not hidden from your being. You are still made of the same atoms. You still share the same laws. You are still part of the same story. But still, the mind wonders. What lies behind that final curtain of visibility? Could there be more stars, more galaxies, maybe even other versions of the same laws we know? Could time behave differently? Could gravity dance with other rhythms? The truth is, we cannot know, and that, somehow, is comforting, because the boundary that keeps those secrets safe is not a fence, it's a soft blur, a veil drawn by the hands of light and time. This veil is not constant. It grows, every second, more of the universe falls beyond it. More galaxies move past the point where their light could ever return. It's a horizon that expands as you breathe, and with it, the visible universe contracts, like a shrinking island surrounded by rising tides. But the horizon does more than hide. It also reveals. It tells you the limits of what light can do. It shows you that speed, even the speed of light, is not always enough. You once thought of light as the fastest thing there is, as unstoppable, as instant. But now you know better. Now you know that even light needs help. It needs a stage to cross, and if that stage stretches too fast beneath its feet, even light gets left behind. This changes how you think of time. You used to believe the future simply waited for you, that it was always ahead, fixed and reachable. But in a universe like this, the future isn't a destination, it's a narrowing path. Some moments are slipping out of reach before they ever arrive. Some events, grand or small, are already unreachable. Not because they won't happen, but because their light will never find its way back to you. You close your eyes and picture the moment Earth formed. 4.5 billion years ago. The light from that time is long gone, absorbed, scattered, reshaped by clouds and stones and water. Now imagine a planet forming right now, 46 billion light years away. You will never see it. Its light will never arrive. Not in 100 years, not in 100 billion. That light will fall behind. Not because it sits weak, but because space doesn't stare at wait. And in that realization you feel something else. Humility. Not the kind that shames or shrinks you, but the kind that quiets you. The kind that shows you your scale. Not to diminish you, but to help you rest. You are not meant to see everything. You are meant to wonder. And wonder thrives where certainty ends. So now, as you lie in this stillness, you think of the places that live in permanent silence. Not metaphorical silence, but real, physical absence. Places whose photons will never find your eyes. They are not lost. They are simply elsewhere. And still, they matter. Because even what you can see affects you. Dark matter is proof of this. It makes up most of the universe's mass. Yet it doesn't shine, it doesn't reflect, it doesn't speak in light. But its gravity tugs on stars, bends galaxies, warps the shape of space. You don't need to see it to feel its presence. That's the lesson space is offering you tonight. That the invisible is not the same as the unreal. That light is only one form of knowing. And that behind the veil of visibility, something continues. The universe doesn't end at the edge of light. It expands past it. And so can you. You take a deeper breath now. Not to fill your lungs, but to expand your awareness. The darkness is not empty. It is full of waiting, of wandering, of whispers too stretched to hear. You are not racing light anymore. You are floating beside it. You are learning from it. Learning that movement isn't always progress. That catching up isn't always necessary. That sometimes the act of continuing is enough. So let the galaxies go. Let the stars recede. Let the photons stretch into sleep. You are here, and that is far enough. You've let the galaxies drift. You've watched the light slow, stretch, and finally fade into silence. Now you remain in the space between what is visible and what is imagined. A place that doesn't demand answers, only presence. You are not traveling anymore. You're floating in the pause between destinations, in the soft vacuum where questions breathe freely, without collapsing into conclusions. Here, in this quiet fold of the universe, even time begins to feel different. You can no longer feel it pass in hours or minutes. Time becomes texture. It thickens and thins around the pace of thought. You begin to understand why the older stars shine with such stillness. They are not in a hurry. The universe, too, is not in a hurry. And you don't need to be either. This part of space is filled not with things but with consequences. Not with stars and planets, but with the shadows they cast. The gravitational bends, the background echoes, the faint trails of particles that once burned brightly, and now leave only memory. There's a beauty in these leftovers. A kind of honesty. You're not looking at the universe as it is, you're looking at the ghost of what it was. And still it teaches. You feel the presence of gravitational waves, ripples in the fabric of space itself, moving outwards from collisions too far away, and too ancient to see. These waves are not light, they are not particles, they are movement through nothingness. Echoes in space-time, not carried by it, but formed within it. A black hole merges with another, millions of years ago, and now, only now, its impact brushes past you like a ripple across a sleeping pond. You do not hear it, but something in you senses it, that space-time is not static. It is soft, it moves, it flexes, it responds. You are not resting on a surface, you are resting in a medium that breathes beneath you, slow and wide and ancient, and you begin to wonder if gravity can ripple, if light can fail to catch up, if time can bend. What else can the universe do? You float deeper into thought, where distance is no longer measured in kilometers, but in consequences. In the difference between now and then, between here and what can never be reached. You are beginning to see why cosmologists talk about causal disconnection, why they say parts of the universe are already beyond influence. It means that some galaxies, some places are so far gone, you could never touch them. Not with ships, not with signals, not even with light. You and they no longer share a common future. Your clocks will never agree. Your paths will never cross. You are separate. And yet, strangely, that separation doesn't feel lonely. It feels quiet, like knowing there's someone else dreaming across the world, under a different sky. Someone you'll never meet, but whose existence comforts you anyway. Their dream becomes part of yours. That's what this disconnected universe feels like. Not isolation, but peace with the idea that not everything needs to be reached to be real. You begin to think of your own place in this mapless universe. Your home galaxy, the Milky Way, is still filled with motion, stars orbiting a black hole at its center, dust forming new suns, light crossing the vast arms of a spiral that takes 250 million years to complete a single turn. And beyond it, the local group Andromeda, Triangulum, dozens of dwarf galaxies held together in a mutual gravitational embrace. This small family, floating in the immensity. But beyond them, space that is expanding too quickly to hold on to. Space that will pull everything else apart until only your family remains. Astronomers say that in the very distant future, perhaps 100 billion years from now, only the local group will be visible. Everything else will have moved beyond the event horizon, redshifted into non-existence. Imagine looking up at a night sky like that. No distant galaxies, no clusters, just the quiet glow of your own stars, surrounded by blackness. Not because the others were never there, but because the space between you and them grew too wide. And still you feel calm, because you realize that light was never the only measure of connection. That knowledge, once earned, cannot be undone by silence. That you can know of something, feel its truth, even if its light never finds you again. So much of the universe's story is written in invisible ink. The early inflation period, when the cosmos expanded faster than light, the formation of the first atoms. The brief era of recombination when the cosmic microwave background was released. None of these moments can be seen directly, and yet they've shaped every atom in your body. You are made of what cannot be seen, and if you are made of the unseen, you are also made for it. Made to rest in it, to float in its quiet, to fall asleep, knowing that the dark beyond the stars is not a threat, but a pillow. You lie still now, not trying to think, but letting thought unravel softly. The edges of your questions begin to dissolve. You no longer need to know how far the light can go. You only need to know that it goes, that somewhere a photon is still trying to reach you, and that effort is enough. You imagine that photon, ancient, stretched, almost gone. You imagine its last moment, as it disappears into a wavelength too long to detect. And even then, even in its final fading, it has meaning. It has travelled, it has tried, it has existed, and that, you realize, is the universe set's final message in this chapter. That trying is beautiful. That reaching matters, even when you don't arrive. That light, like thought, does not need to catch up to count. So you rest now, wrapped not in light, but in the journey of light. And as you breathe, space continues to stretch. And as space stretches, you dream. You are floating now on the edge of familiarity, where the known universe begins to whisper of the unknown, not with fear but with invitation. You've travelled through expanding space, followed fading light, and listened to the silence behind stars. But now something stranger arrives, not through proof, but through possibility. a question with no solid border. What if this universe is not alone? It begins as a flicker, an idea that hums quietly in the corners of cosmology, not a fact, but a ripple. If space can stretch, fold, and give birth to stars, might it also give birth to other worlds, entire universes, separated not by distance but by rules, realities where gravity behaves differently, where time curls in odd directions, where even the laws of matter are rewritten like poetry in a different dialect? You drift deeper into the thought, letting it unfold without resistance. After all, the universe has always offered more than it reveals, and just as galaxies once hid behind redshift, perhaps other universes hide behind dimensional veils, realms that coexist but never collide. This is the idea of the multiverse, not just a theory of infinite space, but of infinite variations, where our universe is one bubble in a vast cosmic foam, each bubble expanding in its own direction, its own tempo, its own physics. Imagine it, not like stars scattered in space, but like bubbles drifting in a void beyond void, each one sealed, each one silent, each one filled with its own kind of sky. You lie still, breathing slowly, and picture these bubble universes. Some might be smaller, some might last only a few seconds, others could be enormous, old and vibrant, bursting with galaxies unlike anything we know. Perhaps in one, the constants of nature are slightly different. A heavier electron, a slower speed of light, a universe where gravity is too strong to allow stars or too weak to form planets. In that space of thought, you realize something beautiful, that our universe, this one, yours, might be rare, not in the sense of importance, but in the sense of balance. The forces that shape our reality, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces, gravity, they are tuned in such a delicate way that stars can form, life can emerge, and breath can exist. This is what some physicists call the anthropic principle. The idea that the universe appears suited to life because if it weren't, we wouldn't be here to notice. It's not circular logic. It's quiet reflection. The cosmos could have been anything, and yet, here it is, and so are you. You begin to feel that quiet alignment, that improbable softness, that this universe with its impossible stars and fragile atoms exists at all. But if other universes exist, why can't we see them? You drift toward that question. It's not a wall, it's a window with the curtains drawn. Other universes, if they exist, may be forever beyond interaction, separated by space that expands too fast to bridge, or perhaps separated by dimensions we cannot access. Closed loops of geometry invisible to even the boldest telescope. There is also the idea of eternal inflation, a theory suggesting that inflation, the rapid expansion that shaped our early universe, didn't happen just once. Instead, it keeps happening, eternally, in different places. Our universe is just one pocket, where inflation ended. Other pockets kept growing, spawning their own realms, each with its own laws. This cosmic sea of universes, this megaverse may never touch us, but the math points to its plausibility. The equations hint, the patterns suggest, and in that gentle suggestion you find something worth dreaming about. Because if reality is bigger than you imagined, then so are you. You let yourself go further, now without hesitation, past the edge of this universe, into the realm of possibility space. Here, each universe becomes a point on an infinite canvas. Some are dim, some are wild, some may be entirely empty, ruled by silence and stillness. Others might be chaotic, too unstable to hold even a moment's order, and among them, a few, just a few, might be hospitable, balanced, gentle, like this one. And that's what makes your universe feel so precious. Not because it's the only one, but because it's the one you're in. The one that sings to you through gravity and starlight. The one that cradles your breath in the arms of atoms that were once born in suns. This is your reality. And it is enough. Still, the question returns. Could these other universes ever meet? You imagine two bubbles brushing in the cosmic dark. A collision, a merging, a ripple across both realities. Some theories suggest that such a collision could leave a scar in the cosmic microwave background. A faint imprint from a universe that touched ours, just briefly, long ago. Astronomers have searched for these marks. Nothing certain has been found, but the possibility lingers. Even the string theory landscape, a theoretical realm of 11 dimensions and vibrating filaments, whispers of a multiverse, each configuration of strings forming a different reality. These are not dreams. These are equations written in chalk and code, tugging at the fabric of what is possible. But you do not need to solve them now. You only need to feel them. The idea that your universe is not a lonely island, but one ripple in a great sea, that there are other shores you'll never visit, but which still exist. That reality is broader, deeper, and more generous than any one mind can hold. And perhaps, just perhaps, these universes are not separate at all. Perhaps they are folded together, like pages in a book you can only read one at a time. Perhaps memory, intuition, and imagination are echoes from other chapters. You let that thought cradle you. You don't still need to know the full story. You only need to trust that it is being written. Not just here, but everywhere. You are still drifting in that vast, silent realm where questions are not answered, but held. The thought of other universes hasn't left you. It hovers like a dim lantern just beyond your reach, not pulling you forward, but illuminating the space around your curiosity. There is no urgency here, just possibility. And tonight, that is enough. The idea lingers that somewhere beyond what your senses can touch, there may be other realities, fully formed, fully alive in their own right. They may have been born from the same strange cosmic inflation that gave birth to this one, or from something else entirely. You'll never visit them. You'll never see their stars. But you can feel the shape of the idea, and in that shape something stirs. You wonder what it would mean if those universes followed different rules. In this universe, gravity binds, light travels at a constant speed, and the charge of an electron is precise. But what if in another universe, those values were shifted, just slightly, enough to stop stars from forming, or to stop atoms from bonding? Those realities would be silent, cold, brief. But what if others were not? What if there are places where galaxies spin in golden spirals, where gravity is playful, where time is braided differently, not linear, but layered, where light behaves more like thought, bending instantly from star to star? You will never see these places, but they breathe in the folds of your imagination. They live in the space between what is measurable and what is meaningful. And in those folds you begin to feel your own universe more deeply. It becomes not just a reality, but a gift. A strange and improbable harmony of forces, so precisely tuned that stars can ignite, planets can orbit, cells can divide, thoughts can wander. You begin to sense that your universe didn't have to be this way. It could have been anything. It could have been nothing. But it was this sky, this gravity, this moment. You lie quietly and think of the quantum fields that ripple beneath all matter, tiny vibrations that form the particles, that form the atoms that form you. According to some theories, every configuration of those fields that can happen does happen. Somewhere, not just once but forever. You are not a singular event. You are one thread in a vast, tangled quilt of reality, stitched from energy and chance. That's what the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics whispers to you, that every choice, every possibility, splits the universe into new branches. One where you turned left, one where you stayed, one where a single photon went a different way, and the entire future bent to accommodate it. You don't need to believe it. You don't need to prove it. You only need to feel the comfort it offers. That reality is not a single brittle path, but a field of blooming options, that no version of you is alone, that somewhere, every potential you've imagined has already unfolded. And yet, among all those infinite possibilities, you are here. This version, this breath, this bed, that's what grounds you. Not because it is the only truth, but because it is the one you are inside. The multiverse may be infinite, but you only need one sky to sleep beneath. Still, your mind wonders, gently, without tension, about how all this might connect. Could the universes ever touch? Could one bubble nudge another, causing a ripple that passes through space-time like a tremor in a pond? Some theories suggest yes. They say the early universe was once a chaotic foam, bubbling with energy, each pocket of calmness inflated into its own universe, like yours. But sometimes, bubbles might collide, not violently, but like two clouds brushing in the dark. That collision could leave a trace. An asymmetry in the cosmic microwave background, a cold spot, a fingerprint. We've searched for these signs. We've listened for them in radiation, in gravitational waves, in the patterns left behind by the Big Bang. So far, nothing is certain, but nothing has ruled it out. Either. The door is not closed. It's just quiet. And in that quiet, you drift. You begin to think not of collisions, but of communications. Not through language or sound, but through physics. Could the laws themselves be messages? Could the fine-tuned constants of your universe be echoes, answers to questions asked by realities before this one? The idea seems impossible, and yet the universe has always blurred the line between lore and story. Gravity is real, but so is its poetry. Time is measurable, but also felt. Light is both a wave and a particle. And perhaps the multiverse is both unreachable and already inside you. You're not separate from the other possibilities. You are the product of all that could have been. You are one roll of the cosmic dice. But the dice keep rolling, somewhere else. A different life unfolds under a different sky. And still, here you are, breathing, soft, wondering. You begin to understand that this vast web of possibility doesn't make life meaningless. It makes it precious. It means that this moment, this single arrangement of matter and memory, is not just an accident. It is a note in a larger song, and you are allowed to rest in it, to hear its tone, to fall asleep knowing it exists. The universe may be one of many, but this version cradles you now. This version gave you stars. This version lets you dream. And as you close your eyes, you stop chasing the other worlds. Not because you doubt them, but because you trust them. Trust that they are there in their own way. Trust that this moment is one thread in an infinite tapestry, and it does not need to stretch further to be complete. You've reached the edge of what can be imagined, and beyond that edge, you find peace. Not in answers, but in presence. You've passed the threshold where speculation turns into surrender. Not the kind of surrender that gives up, but the kind that gives in to vastness, to wonder, to the comfort of not knowing everything. You are resting in a space where the multiverse is no longer a theory or a diagram. It's a lullaby of what-ifs, gently humming beneath your thoughts. You lie still, your breath sinking with the quiet pulse of space. It's strange to realize how much not knowing can soothe you. In daily life, questions often come with pressure. Answers must be found, conclusions must be drawn. But not here, not now. The multiverse is too wide for that. It doesn't demand understanding. It invites you to float. And so you do. You drift through the possibility that our universe is not the center of anything, but a single note in an infinite chord, not louder than the others, not more important, just tuned to a pitch that resonates with breath and heat and time. You begin to wonder if there are other universes. Could they carry memories of us? Not in the way a photograph remembers a face, but in the way a melody remembers its rhythm. Could there be echoes of your thoughts scattered like pollen in realities you'll never know? A feeling, maybe. A pattern. A version of you shaped by laws not found here, but close enough to allow joy, grief, curiosity. And then you remember, memory is already an act of layering. Your own thoughts, your dreams, your regrets, your imaginings are not limited to this moment. They ripple backward and forward, reshaping how you understand the past, how you approach the future. Memory is a universe too, built not of stars, but of moments you carry with you. Perhaps that's why the multiverse comforts you, because in some quiet way it mirrors how your own mind works. Multiple outcomes, overlapping truths, versions of yourself that almost existed. Every choice you've made, not as an ending, but as a fork in an invisible trail. You didn't walk them all, but they're still there. And in the wide quiet of this idea, you realize something gentle. You don't need those other paths to validate this one. You don't need to know how many universes exist to appreciate the one that shaped your hands, your voice, your breath. Your reality is not diminished by the existence of others. It's expanded. It becomes a sacred version. One possibility that unfolded just this way, with just these stars, just these people, just this you. You begin to think about observers, a term physicists use to describe those who measure, who perceive, who affect outcomes simply by existing. In quantum mechanics, the observer is not passive. It participates, it shapes. And in the multiverse, perhaps the observer still matters. Perhaps it's not just a sea of infinite outcomes, but a sea in which attention, presence, consciousness still has meaning. You are not just floating in possibility, you are shaping your place within it. Even if you never leave your room, even if your eyes are closed, even if you never touch another universe. Your attention is a kind of bridge, a kind of thread, and it weaves you to everything else. You wonder, softly, if others out there are wondering too. Beings made of different elements, shaped by different stars, following different physics, but somehow still aware, still feeling the quiet weight of existence, still asking the question you're asking now. Am I alone in this version of everything? And the multiverse doesn't answer with a yes or no. It answers with maybe, with perhaps, with a sense of company that doesn't depend on confirmation. Because the truth is, loneliness doesn't come from being one of many. It comes from believing your voice echoes into nothing. But in the multiverse, no voice is wasted, no moment is alone. Every possibility breathes alongside every other, and you begin to feel a new kind of stillness, one that isn't just quiet but connected, like lying on the floor of a vast cathedral whose ceiling you can't see, but whose acoustics carry even your smallest whisper through unseen arches. You don't need to know where it goes to know that it goes. That's what this moment feels like. Your thoughts don't fall into darkness. They stretch, they curve, they ripple into something greater. You let them go now, thoughts of other universes, other selves, other laws. You let them drift like balloons released in an open sky, not lost but rising, going where you can't follow. And that's okay, because you stir not made to hold everything. You stir made to wonder. You stir made to rest. And in this version of the universe, that is enough. You've imagined countless worlds tonight, stranger, darker, lighter, wilder than this one. But this is the world that wrapped your body in atoms. This is the world that cradled your heart in starlight. This is the world where your breath moves in and out, like waves on a shore only you have walked. And perhaps that sips the point. Not to chase every universe, but to be present in this one. To listen to the way your blanket curls near your shoulder. To feel the air stir against your skin. To let gravity hold you just firmly enough to know you belong. Because no matter how many universes may exist, no matter how far their laws may drift from yours, none of them cancel this one. None of them erase this moment. You are here. You are real. You are enough. You lie still, surrounded by stars you cannot see, drifting in the soft gravity of sleep. But now the journey shifts, not outward, not beyond, not toward other universes. Now the direction turns inward. Inward, not as retreat, but as revelation. You've wondered if space ever ends. You've drifted toward the edge of light and time. You've imagined other realities humming beyond the veil. But tonight, your voyage folds into the space you carry inside. Because the universe is not only around you, it is within you. You are not separate from the cosmos. You are written by it. Your atoms are stardust. Your breath is borrowed from ancient air. The iron in your blood was born in the death of a star. Your thoughts are electrical dances, choreographed by chemistry that began before Earth had oceans. You are not just in the universe. You are the universe, briefly aware of itself. You breathe in, and that breath carries particles that have traveled through forests, through lungs of birds and wolves and strangers, each molecule shaped by temperature, pressure, the spin of the Earth. But further still, those molecules are made of atoms. Hydrogen, oxygen, carbon. And where did those atoms come from? They came from stars. Not just any stars. Giant, dying ones. Supernova. Explosions so bright they outshone entire galaxies. Stars that burned for millions of years until they collapsed inward and tore themselves apart, flinging their cores across space. And somewhere in that debris, iron, calcium, nitrogen, dust that would one day gather into a cloud. That cloud would become a solar system. That solar system would cradle a small blue world. That world would carry oceans and forests and cities. And one day, you carry this story not in your memory, but in your marrow. Your bones are the cooled ash of ancient suns. Your skin is made of elements fused in the furnace of long-dead giants. And your eyes, those soft reflectors of starlight, are the only part of the universe known to look back and wonder where it came from. You are cosmic history in motion, a timeline in the shape of a heartbeat. And as you lie here now, your mind slowly melting into rest, you begin to feel that history in a new way, not as something you study, but as something you are. Your cells are tiny universes of their own, each one bustling with atoms arranged in patterns so precise that they produce breath, warmth, awareness. Inside every cell are mitochondria, once free-roaming bacteria, now fused to your biology, quietly powering you. Their DNA is ancient, older than memory, older than mammals, older than land. You are not made of new things. You are made of ancient pieces in new arrangements. The water in your body has circled the planet countless times. It has been rain, river, cloud, and ocean. It has passed through trees and tides. It has frozen in glaciers and danced in thunderstorms. And now, tonight, it rests inside your skin, keeping your pulse steady. And deeper still, beneath the molecules and atoms and particles, are the fields. The quantum hum that pervades all space. You are not solid in the way you once believed. Between every atom is space, vast compared to the nucleus. If your body were expanded to the size of the Earth, your nucleus would be the size of a grain of salt, and the rest? Emptiness. But it is not emptiness that scares you now. It is emptiness that comforts, because you realize space is not the absence of things. It is the context for connection. The same space that exists between galaxies exists between the particles in your fingertips. You are built on a frame of silence, and in that silence motion becomes possible. You are also made of time. Every second that passes is not just something you experience, it is something you generate. Your brain constructs the sense of now, from chemical cascades, electrical loops, and sensory echoes. Time does not tick the same inside you as it does in the stars. Time is relative, and you, like space, bend it with your presence. You may have heard that space and time are a fabric, but they are not cloth. They are not static. They are alive in the way gravity is alive, in the way your thoughts are alive. When you move, time adjusts for you. When you accelerate, your mass changes how time flows around you. You are small, but your presence shapes the universe. However faintly, it bends in response to your being. You begin to feel something deeper than awe. Now, something warmer. Not just that the universe is within you, but that you are safe in it. That you belong not because of what you do or what you know, but because of what you are. A rare, quiet phenomenon. A flicker of consciousness shaped by gravity and starlight, resting now on a planet made of cooled fire. You lie back and imagine all the systems in your body that carry the memory of the universe. The carbon cycle inside your cells mirrors the carbon cycle in the atmosphere. The sodium in your tears once swam in ancient seas. The neurons that fire in your brain are structured like galaxies, nodes, and threads. Vast networks where signals pass like light across space. You are not an observer of the universe. You are a pattern in it. A rhythm. A note in a cosmic song that began long before you were born and will continue long after you're gone. And yet, while you are here, this brief flicker, this delicate interval, you have the ability to know that, to feel it, to lie under a ceiling or beneath a sky and whisper to yourself, I am made of stars. Not poetically. Literally, you are a constellation rearranged, a spiral arm of awareness, a soft point of curiosity in a cosmos that mostly moves without noticing itself. And in this noticing, something changes. The universe becomes a little more awake, a little more aware of its own becoming, because you are not just the result of physics, you are the witness of it. And now, in this witness, you rest. Not from exhaustion, but from arrival. You have traveled to the farthest edges of imagination through space, time, light, and theory. And now, you've turned inward and found that the vastness you sought was already here, in your chest, in your breath, in your gentle awareness of being. You are the edge of the universe, and you are its center. And as you drift into sleep, you do not shrink away from that truth. You float in it, weightless. Still, you are no longer floating through space. You are space, The galaxies have stopped spinning around you, and instead, you feel them within your chest, like soft lights pulsing in rhythm with your breath. You've let go of the idea that the universe is out there, distant and cold. Now you know it is folded inside you, tucked into every cell, humming quietly beneath your skin. You are not a guest in the cosmos. You are its continuation. And tonight, as you rest in this truth, your mind slips into the smallest corners of your being, corners that stretch wider than the galaxies ever could. Because inside you, entire worlds are unfolding, not in vastness, but in precision, in silence, in scale so small it makes infinity feel like something you could hold between two fingers. You begin to imagine your body not as flesh and bone, but as architecture, a temple built from subatomic symphonies. You picture a single cell, a skin cell perhaps, or one of the trillions lining your bloodstream. Within it, thousands of proteins work without rest, assembling, folding, twisting, sending messages with impossible accuracy, each one shaped by strands of DNA that trace back not just to your parents or their parents, but to every creature that ever lived. Inside that DNA are letters, not literal but informational, a language written in molecules, adenine, thymine, cytosine, guanine. These are your cosmic syllables, repeated, passed down, edited by time, carved by radiation and sunlight and survival. And though they were shaped by Earth, their origins are not terrestrial, they are galactic, because even these molecules began as elements forged in stars, hydrogen that has drifted since the beginning of time, carbon that was once compressed inside dying suns, phosphorus born in interstellar dust clouds. You are built from things that burned, collapsed, exploded and wandered for eons, until somehow they became you. You are, at your core, a memory of fire. But fire alone doesn't explain how you feel what you feel. For that, you must go deeper. Deeper into your nervous system, where signals flicker across synapses like fireflies in a midnight field. Your neurons don't just transmit, they predict, they guess, they prepare. They build meaning from almost nothing, turning random data into pattern, story, feeling. This is your brain, not as a computer, but as a cosmos of its own. Imagine now a single thought, a memory perhaps, something simple, the smell of a childhood room, the sound of someone calling your name. Where does that live? It lives not in one place, but across countless neurons, each carrying a piece, like stars sharing the burden of light. The thought doesn't exist until they fire together. It's not stored, it's reassembled, recreated. Each time you remember, you build it again. And that building is shaped by who you are now, not just who you were then. That means memory is not just time travel, it's time creation. You are both the archaeologist and the architect of your own past. And that too is cosmic, because the universe works the same way. It doesn't store history in a single place. It reassembles it, through photons traveling from ancient stars, through particles echoing the earliest moments, through minds like yours wondering, remembering, imagining. You are not just in the universe. You are co-authoring it. With every breath you take, every thought that stirs, you're helping the cosmos reflect on itself, in the language of emotion, in the quiet of sleep, in the electric murmurs of dreams. And what are dreams if not constellations of inner experience? Every night, your mind releases itself from the constraints of linearity. It wanders, it dissolves identity, time, gravity. It builds entire landscapes from whispers. People who don't exist, places you've never seen, feelings that rise and fall without cause. This is not a glitch. This is not noise. This is your consciousness expanding, just like space, not outward, but inward, creating more room, more story, more self. And perhaps just as galaxies formed from clouds of dust, your identity is still forming, condensing around memories and meanings and questions that haven't yet found their answers. You are still becoming. And this becoming is slow and kind and wide. It moves through the seasons of your life like tides. It carries you through silence and through sound, through loneliness and through love, through presence and through sleep. Because sleep too is cosmic. It is not absence. It is integration. It is the dark energy of the self, subtle, powerful, essential. You lie down to rest, but your body begins its work, repairing, rewiring, rebalancing. While your consciousness lets go of names, times, and tasks, the deeper parts of you keep orbiting, keep pulsing, keep building the next version of you. Tonight, as you drift, you are not stepping away from life. You are stepping deeper into it, into the version of life that lives behind the eyes, the part of you that doesn't speak, but knows, that doesn't explain, but feels, that doesn't reach, but radiates. And as you lie still, the universe inside you continues. Mitochondria hum like tiny suns, powering the symphony. Enzymes float like dancers, completing cycles billions of years old. DNA coils and uncoils, whispering instructions in the language of existence. You are not empty. You are not small. You are an internal galaxy, not theoretical, not metaphorical, literal. And as your awareness softens, you feel it. The pulse of blood like comets circling a sun. The breath like waves of expansion and return. The stillness like background radiation. Present, steady, ancient. You rest now not on a bed, but in a field of stars arranged in the shape of you. Used to have asked where the universe ends. Now you begin to feel where it begins again. Here, in the warmth behind your ribs, in the quiet of your thoughts, in the softness of sleep just beyond reach. You have drifted through the vastness beyond galaxies, crossed the edge of light, brushed past the veil of other realities, and now you lie weightless, anchored not by stars but by something quieter, something deeper, the soft and constant unfolding of the universe inside you. It is not dramatic. It doesn't explode or scream. It simply continues, layer by layer, cell by cell, like the slow bloom of a nebula you'll never see, but somehow understand. You are no longer trying to grasp the universe in your mind. You're beginning to sense that it was never meant to be grasped. It was meant to be felt. And tonight, you're not separate from it. Not looking at it like a map, not measuring it like a chart. You are immersed in it. As water surrounds a fish, as night surrounds a flame. The journey inward becomes more subtle now. You feel less like a traveler and more like a witness. There's nothing to reach for, only to recognize that even in stillness, something is unfolding. Not far away, but right here, in the rhythm of your breath, in the quiet signal of your heartbeat, in the soft weight of your body against the bed. All of it speaks. All of it echoes the larger story. Because your body, while small, is not simple. It is a cathedral of complexity. Every organ a planet. Every process a system of forces, checks, balances, orbits. Your liver processes more chemicals than any machine ever made. Your heart pumps 5 liters of blood every minute without needing permission. Your brain holds memories, images, languages, millions of years of evolution stacked layer upon layer like geological strata. But deeper still, beneath the organs, beneath the cells, are the particles. The real travelers. Protons and neutrons forged in the first seconds after the Big Bang. Electrons that have danced around atoms since before Earth formed. These particles, these pieces of you, are older than the planet beneath your feet. They are timeless passengers, recycled, not once or twice, but endlessly. From star to cloud, from plant to animal, from air to blood. You are not just made of stardust, you are made of history. And these particles are not fixed. They do not sit still, they vibrate. Constantly, even in rest, your atoms are never at rest. Quantum mechanics tells us that nothing is truly still. The closer we look, the more the certainty falls apart. Electrons do not have definite positions. Particles behave like waves. Observing something changes it. Even your body, when examined closely enough, becomes a blur of probability. You are not a solid structure. You are a dance of energy. A coordinated, temporary storm of order in a universe that leans toward disorder. This storm, this you exists, in delicate defiance of entropy. Every breath, every thought, every motion is a pause against the cosmic trend toward chaos. And yet, even as entropy slowly rises around you, your body organizes, heals, remembers. lives, that ability to defy chaos long enough to think about it, is itself a miracle, a quiet one that happens every day, and it's happening right now. You are asleep, or nearly there, and yet your brain is more active than ever. It is processing memories, archiving fragments, strengthening the connections it deems most meaningful. Your dreams are not random, they are architecture under construction, imagination and biology working together in silence. And somewhere deep in that architecture, something else moves. Not particles, not thoughts, not measurable, but something aware. A soft thread that weaves through your entire being. The part of you that knows you are here, that hears this moment, even as your senses fade. Call it consciousness. Call it spirit. Call it nothing at all. It doesn't matter. What matters is that it exists. That you exist. And that your existence, no matter how temporary, has the ability to notice itself. The universe is filled with matter that does not notice. Rocks do not wonder. Stars do not pause. Oceans do not dream. But you do. Somehow within this vast and ancient unfolding, you emerged, a configuration of atoms that became aware of time, a vessel of chemistry capable of asking, why? And perhaps that's the greatest gift of the universe within you. Not just that it reflects the cosmos, but that it reflects back with curiosity, that your thoughts are not just echoes of stars but questions cast toward them. What else lives inside you? You begin to feel it now. Empathy, joy, sorrow, imagination. Not as emotional noise, but as quiet evidence of complexity that physics alone doesn't explain. Where do these things live? Not in the heart, not in the brain, but in the space between signals, the pause before a word, the breath before a decision. They live in relationship, one part of you responding to another, one self balancing another self. You are not one person. You are a system, a galaxy of selves, past, present, imagined, remembered. And you hold them all, even as you sleep, even as you drift, even as your mind lets go of stories and names and time. And in that letting go, you become closer to the universe than ever before. Not as something that thinks or explains, but as something that is. You return to your origin, to stillness, to vibration, to warmth. You are not reaching for stars anymore. You are the glow between them. You are not listening for answers anymore. You are the quiet that allows questions to exist. And in this final quiet of the night, the universe inside you does not sleep. It breathes. It waits. It continues. You are still, not because you've stopped moving, but because you've stopped resisting. Your breath is soft now, nearly silent. Your body sinks into warmth without struggle. The thoughts that once darted like anxious birds have folded their wings. You are not empty. You are not finished. You are simply in the place where wonder no longer asks for answers. It only asks to be. You've wandered through galaxies. You felt time stretch and bend. You followed light to the edge of visibility. You folded inward into cells, atoms, particles, memories. You've become part of the question. Does space end? But now, here at the quietest edge of thought, something new arises. You begin to see that the question itself may be the destination, not a riddle to be solved, but a horizon to return to again and again. There is something beautiful about questions that don't close. They stay with you, evolving as you do. They become mirrors that reflect not just the world, but your shifting place within it. And this question, does space end, has carried you far and brought you home. Because the more you've looked outward, the more you've felt inward. The more you've expanded into space, the more space you've made for stillness. And now that question sits beside you, not needing to be answered, not pressing forward, just resting in its shape, round and unfinished. Like a moon rising behind fog, you know it's whole, even if you can't see the edges. There is a quiet power in that. You remember now how children ask questions, not to challenge, but to touch, to connect, to see if their voice can reach into the unknown and return with something warm. And perhaps at the edge of science we are all still children, asking not to conquer, but to feel less alone in the vastness. Where does it end? It depends on how you define end. There is no wall at the edge of space, no brick boundary, no flashing sign, but there are limits limits of sight, of signal, of time. The observable universe has a boundary. It's just not a physical one, it's a horizon of history. Beyond it, space continues, but its story no longer reaches you. And yet, the absence of signal doesn't feel like absence anymore. It feels like invitation. Like a book you haven't set finished. Like a song with a final note that never plays. And somehow that silence becomes the most memorable part. The universe doesn't end in the way a road ends. It doesn't drop you off or tell you to turn around. It just softens. It dims, it hums beneath the limits of perception. And maybe that's what makes it so tender. It doesn't shout. It doesn't prove. It just keeps going. And now, so do you. Not forward, not backward, but deeper, into the kind of knowing that feels more like remembering. You remember what it felt like to wonder for the first time, to lie beneath a night sky and ask questions that didn't have names, to trace shapes between stars and imagine stories. You were younger then, but not less wise. Because wisdom doesn't always come with age. Sometimes it comes with quiet, and you are very quiet now. You feel the question of space pressing against you. Not with force, but with presence. It's no longer a thing to solve. It's a companion, a teacher, a friend that walks beside you without needing to speak. And in that silence, other questions begin to stir. What does it mean to be here now? What part of me reaches across time? Who am I when I stop trying to define myself? These are not cosmic questions in the traditional sense, but they arise from the same soil, from the same breath, from the same awareness that allowed galaxies to be seen and atoms to be split. Curiosity is not a tool. It is a condition of being alive. And as long as you are here, breathing, dreaming, drifting, you are asking, even in sleep, especially in sleep, because sleep is not the end of thought. It is its transformation. It is where questions slip past logic and into language the body understands, where time stretches, where the self dissolves and reforms without needing permission. You are not less yourself here. You are more. You are closer to the version of you that feels without naming, understands without proving, loves without explaining. You are whole, and you are held, not by answers, but by wonder. You begin to feel that space, the real space, is not measured in light years or parsecs. It is measured in allowing the space between thoughts, between stars, between questions, between heartbeats. And in that space you find rest, not because you stopped searching, but because you realize there is no rush. The universe is not running out of time. Neither are you. You are here for a while. That is all you ever needed. And that is more than enough. You don't need to see the end of space to feel your place within it. You don't need to name every mystery to be changed by it. You are already part of the unfolding, already a note in the cosmic chord. So now, as sleep folds you into its wide and weightless embrace, the question remains, not as a burden, but as a blessing, a reminder that the most beautiful truths are the ones that keep evolving. That space, like the soul, is not meant to close. It is meant to open. You are no longer waiting for an answer. The question itself has become a rhythm, a pulse you've grown used to, like the soft ticking of a clock in another room. You don't need to find where it ends. You simply listen, breathe, drift. It surrounds you now. This question: does space end? Like a blanket, not a barrier. It's not a gate you must push through, but a doorway you are allowed to rest beside, knowing that what lies beyond is not yours to solve tonight. The night deepens. Your mind, once filled with movement, now floats gently between wakefulness and something softer. The boundary between body and universe is thinner here. You are no longer thinking about stars and atoms. You are feeling them like a current beneath still water. You followed science as far as it could take you, and now something else takes over. A kind of quiet faith. Not religious, not dogmatic, but the kind of faith that rises when you no longer need everything to be certain. You think of the observable universe, the known stretch of galaxies we can see, defined not by its edges, but by the limits of time and light. It isn't a box, it isn't a dome. It's more like a bubble whose size depends on what light has had time to reach us. We aren't at the center of that bubble because we are special. We are at the center because the bubble grows from where we stand. That's how observation works. Not in absolute truth, but in perspective. And suddenly that feels like a metaphor for everything. Not just cosmology, but memory, emotion, selfhood. You are the center of your own bubble, and the size of it depends on what light, what understanding has reached you. Maybe you shall never see all of it. Maybe some truths will always exist just beyond your personal horizon. And maybe that's okay. There is grace in that thought. A softness. You don't need to know everything to rest in something. You think of the light that hasn't arrived yet. Light from stars so distant, their photons are still traveling, still slipping through the stretching fabric of space. One day, long after you're gone, that light will arrive here. Someone will see it. Or something. The universe is in no hurry. Neither are you. You think of the phrase look back time, a concept in astronomy that tells us how far into the past we are seeing when we gaze at a distant object. A galaxy, 1 billion light years away, is seen as it was 1 billion years ago. Time is layered into space. Distance is just another way to measure memory. You lie there, surrounded by look back time. Your body is a vessel of look back time. The carbon in your muscles, it formed in stars 5 billion years ago. The calcium in your bones, likely older. The hydrogen in the water that fills your cells. It was born just moments after the Big Bang, some of the oldest material in the universe, and it's inside you right now. You're made of echoes. And yet, you are not just a collection of the past. You are a presence. And now, a consciousness bright enough to reflect on the path you've taken through all this time. That reflection, gentle, humble, is another kind of light. One that doesn't need to travel to be felt. You think of black holes now, not because they are dark, but because they are patient. They wait. They bend time. They hold what falls into them without resistance. A singularity isn't an explosion or a monster. It's a reminder that reality bends, that even gravity has its own poetry. You wonder, does space end in something like that? A curve so deep it never comes back. And then you realize, maybe that separates you. Maybe you are a curve. Not your body, but your experience, your story, your path through the world. It didn't move in a straight line. It bent. It folded. It circled back. And yet, here you are, still unfolding. And so is space. So is time. So is everything. You remember reading that the universe may be flat, geometrically, but only approximately. The truth might be subtler, like the difference between a perfect circle and one drawn by a hand trembling in the cold. And you, your life, your thoughts, are drawn with that same trembling hand, imperfect, beautiful, real. You think now of endings, not because they are here, but because you're ready to let go of needing to avoid them. The universe may one day fade. Stars will die, galaxies will dim, there may be a final darkness, an end to motion, to light, to everything we recognize as life. But not tonight. Tonight, there are stars still burning. Tonight, your breath still moves in and out. Tonight, your body still listens to the lullaby of existence. And that is enough. You've been told the universe is expanding, that its edges grow faster than light can chase them. But here, in this bed, in this room, in this moment, you are not expanding. You are resting, not chasing light, but letting it wash over you, not stretching toward a future, but folding into a present that needs no improvement. You are not looking for more. You are letting what is be enough. The question still remains, does space end? But now it doesn't ask for an answer. It doesn't test you. It doesn't pull you forward. It simply sits beside you like an old friend. A friend who never asked for much, only to be heard, only to be felt, only to be shared. And you share it now, with your breath, with your body, with the part of you that no longer needs to explain everything to believe in it. There is something beautiful about a question that stays open. It means you can return to it whenever you need, and it will welcome you, every time. You are not drifting now, you are resting. The question, does space end, no longer feels like a destination to reach, but a soft current carrying you through memory, possibility, and presence. You have journeyed through theories and timelines, stars and cells. You've wandered far, and now, at the quietest edge of curiosity, you are beginning to understand. The question doesn't require an answer, it requires a listener. So you listen, not with ears, but with attention. You feel the way the question shapes your breath, slows your heartbeat, smooths the edges of your thoughts. It's not demanding, it's not trying to corner you into clarity. It's simply staying open, endless, like the thing it asks about. This is the nature of certain truths, not to be solved, but to be felt, held, returned to. And tonight, you hold this one with ease, because you know now that space, like silence, can stretch without breaking. You know that not every horizon must be reached to be understood. You lie beneath a sky you cannot see, but whose memory glows behind your eyes. The stars are still there, far beyond the ceiling, their light still crossing gulfs of time. Some of that light is millions of years old. Some of it has traveled for billions. The night sky you remember is not a picture of now. It is a mosaic of many thens, layered together to become the present. And you are a part of that layering. You are built from old light, from old time, from the afterglow of beginnings you'll never witness, and the silence of endings you'll never reach. But you do not need to witness to belong. You do not need to reach to rest. You are where the story folds back on itself. You are where distance becomes stillness. You think now of something gentle, how even as galaxies drift apart, gravity still holds pockets of closeness. The local group, they call it, a collection of galaxies, Milky Way, Andromeda, Triangulum, and others, bound by gravity strong enough to resist the expansion of the universe. They will not be torn away, not soon, not for eons. They remain together, and perhaps your thoughts are like that. In a mind that expands, questions that wander far and wide, there are still things that stay, memories, names, longings, moments, held not by force, but by gravity, emotional gravity. These are your local group, the truths you carry with you no matter how far you drift. And even as the rest fades, those distant worries, those unreachable galaxies of thought, these ones stay because they matter, because they are yours. Tonight, you feel that closeness. You feel the nearness of what cannot be lost. And beyond it, you feel the fading, not as tragedy, but as peace. You remember what scientists say about cosmic horizons, that they mark not what doesn't exist, but what cannot ever be known. The space beyond those limits still exists. It still unfolds, it still breathes, but its light will never reach you. Its story will never be told to you. And yet, you believe in it. Isn't that remarkable? That you can believe in what you cannot see, that you can love what you cannot touch, that you can trust the existence of something whose signal may never come. Perhaps that is the real shape of wonder, not in answers, but in this deep, wordless openness to what may be true, even if it never arrives. You are quiet now. Not just externally, but internally. The questions are still there, but they hum like background radiation, present, familiar, steady. You no longer need to chase them. You let them echo, like music played in a room long after the musicians have gone. The notes still dance in the air, and that dance is enough. You think now of the future, not years or decades, but cosmic future. The kind of time that bends language, that dulls imagination. A future where stars exhaust their fuel, where galaxies dim, where the night sky shrinks. Scientists call it heat death, a universe stretched so far, expanded so long, that energy itself becomes scarce. A cold stillness. No new stars, no new light. But that isn't where you are. You are here, in the golden era of visibility, when galaxies still shine, when starlight still arrives, when thought still turns to awe. You lie in a time when the cosmos still sends you messages, and your mind is awake enough to hear them. That is not small. That is not brief. That is everything. You are part of the light-keeping. You are one of the listeners. And tonight you choose to listen not for meaning but for presence. You no longer ask, does space end, with the urgency of the unfamiliar. You ask it the way someone asks an old friend. Are you still here? Not needing an answer, just needing the comfort of the question itself. And space answers, not with words but with presence, with breath, with rhythm, with a slow, never-ending exhale that expands not just the fabric of reality, but the space within your own heart, because you are expanding too. You are not becoming more by adding, you are becoming more by opening, by loosening your grip, by resting. Even now, as sleep begins to blur the corners of your awareness, you are not closing. You are widening into rest, into mystery, into peace. And the question, it doesn't end either. It will be here tomorrow, and the day after, and long after light stops coming, and space stretches too wide for thought, this question will remain. Maybe not in words, maybe not in memory, but in the shape of silence, in the way rest feels, in the way wonder lingers. You are not the one who must finish the question. You are the one who gets to dream with it. You've arrived at the quietest place in the journey, a place not beyond galaxies nor inside atoms, but somewhere else entirely, a place shaped not by facts or formulas, but by stillness. You are no longer seeking distance or depth. You are simply here, at the edge of a thought that has circled through your entire being. The question, does space end, no longer waits for an answer. It has become a companion, a presence, a kind of gentle gravity that you no longer resist. And in this presence you rest. Everything around you is calm now, not because there is nothing left to explore, but because you've explored enough for tonight. Space will always be larger than the time you have to measure it, but what you have is this moment, and in it you begin to feel something greater than explanation. Acceptance. Acceptance that you will not see the end of space. Acceptance that you don't sit to need to. Because your life is not made small by the infinite, it's made luminous by its contrast. You begin to imagine softly what space looks like at its farthest edges, not physically, but emotionally, not as walls or walls of stars, but as a horizon that curves so gently it feels flat, as a silence that expands, not to erase, but to hold. And maybe that's what the end of space really is, not an ending, but a kind of embrace, a widening, a permission to let go of needing more. Because the more you tried to reach it, the farther it moved. And now, by stopping, by lying still, by breathing instead of running, you've arrived somewhere far more meaningful than the edge. You've arrived at the place where asking becomes enough. You think again of your own body, of how space isn't only out there, but within, that the atoms of your chest and fingertips stretch with every inhale, that the cells in your brain spark with the same energy that once ignited suns, that the calcium in your bones and the carbon in your breath were once scattered across nebulae, matter waiting for meaning. And now that matter dreams, you dream, and even your dreaming is cosmic. Because sleep is not escape, it's transformation. It's your body sinking to rhythms older than thought, circadian cycles tuned to planetary turns, melatonin flows triggered by the light of ancient stars now called sun. Your biology is not separate from the cosmos. It is its extension, its continuity. And so when you sleep, the universe sleeps a little with you. Not all of it, just this part. This pocket of warmth. This unique ripple in the ocean of being. You wonder now if space really began, or if it always was, and only changed. Did the Big Bang mark a true beginning or a turning point in something that cannot truly start or stop? Some physicists believe time itself began then. Others say the bang was simply the bloom of one patch of an eternal cosmos. Either way, the question marks the edge of knowing, and the moment you reach that edge, something in you softens. Not because you give up, but because you give in. To wonder, to rest, to the deep beauty of not knowing. You recall the phrase cosmic humility, a term used not to make you feel small, but to remind you that there's freedom in letting the universe be larger than your understanding. That awe is a kind of intelligence too. That softness is not ignorance. It's a deeper listening. And you are listening now, not to words but to the quiet signal beneath them. The part of you that stretches beyond language. The part that doesn't need to explain why it exists, but simply exists. The part that feels, even without evidence, that you are part of something good. Not because you earned it, Not because you solved it, but because you were born into it. You were born into a universe that doesn't need you to figure it out. It only needs you to feel it, to lie beneath its stars, to breathe its air, to live your days on one small world orbiting one quiet sun, to dream. And now, in this dream, space continues. Not with noise, not with urgency, with stillness, with rhythm, with the slow, faithful unfolding of everything. Perhaps that's how you'll carry this question forward. Not by answering it, but by becoming the kind of person who holds it gently, who listens to the vast without fearing it, who lets the mystery be its own kind of music. And when you wake, you will still be part of it. Not as someone who solved the question, but as someone who walked beside it, who slept beneath it, who trusted that not every question needs a conclusion. Some just need to be asked, and asked again, like breath, like tides, like stars blinking in the dark. They come, they go, and space remains, still, expanding, unfinished, like you.